So with this video, we'll take a look at a non-standard workflow inside of SDXL. We're using Comfy UI and the two models, the base model and the refiner model. Now, this particular workflow was one of the early workflows, was adapted actually from one of the early workflows that someone created this. I can't remember exactly who, around the time that the SDXL beta version came out, and I decided to play around with it. I created a wide version, a wide landscape image, and whilst we're supposed to really be working with images that are around 1024 by 1024, about 1 megapixel, this one extends things quite a lot. It extends to 2 megapixels, roughly 2 megapixels, with a landscape design. Nearly 2-to-1 landscape. Now with this one, the outcomes are pretty good, and that's largely due, I think, to the randomness of the prompt. Here the prompt is one which includes a lot of detail, which allows the software to really kind of play around with the ingredients and to come up with something which usually involves a woman and a mirror and a lot of plants and butterflies. So even though typically what happens when you increase the size outside of that sort of 1 megapixel range, with a clever prompt, you can actually get things that work. And it doesn't matter whether or not the prompting and the design follows the orthodox method of around 1 megapixel. If it works, it works. Now with this one, there are some issues with the outcome. For instance, with one, we're currently working at the moment on this particular one which is rendering, and that will produce a refined version here, but this is the previous version which was refined. You can see it's kind of completely filled the designs, completely filled everything in that 2 megapixel image, approximately 2 megapixel image. We've got the mirror, we've got lots of ivy, we've got lots of butterflies, as long as things just make sense. And you can cram things into a prompt. Sometimes you can go beyond that sort of 1 megapixel limit, and you can actually get some pretty decent outcomes. This one is pretty good. I think one area where we had a little bit of a problem was, I think the woman looks good, right? Her neck is a little bit long. That's a problem with SDXL. The women often have long necks. I'm not sure why. And the negative prompt actually contains a long neck. Another thing that it did was to stop with the hand. We're not really sure whether the hand is what's happening with the hand. So she's behind the mirror. She's supposed to be kind of coming out of the mirror, and it's sort of stopped rendering at step 28. And I think actually this is the refined version. It stopped rendering it to step 23, and the hand wasn't quite well formed. In this type of situation, what you might want to do is to increase the number of steps, because that can sometimes give it an opportunity to fix any problems. There are other ways of dealing with problems like this. For instance, with this one, you could easily go into Photoshop and just copy some of the ivy and just cover that. That wouldn't be a problem. The other thing you could do, we can use a type of model or a type of scheme known as an embed, which can sometimes tackle difficult issues like, for instance, bad looking hands, which are fairly common. And in fact, I have put prompts here which sometimes work, and I find that the prompt word disgusting in the negative prompt area and weird, those are sometimes very, very helpful prompts, because they just seem to tell the software, don't have anything that looks weird, anything that looks strange, and it seems sometimes to solve problems. Now in this particular design, I'm trying to work with something that's fairly surrealistic, so I don't want the prompts to, in the negative prompts, to sort of omit anything that might be surrealistic. So weird might not be a negative prompt that I really should have there, because the entire thing is weird. You've got a woman in a portal coming out of a window, coming out of a mirror. It's weird, and you don't want to restrict the creative element within the software. The prompting needs to be careful. Now, this particular scheme is one which uses a very unusual unusual process where we start off with a case sampler for the base model, and then we have another case sampler for the refined model. So it's actually taking a base model and then it's sort of like putting it into a similar process for the refined model. This is non-standard, but what I wanted to do was to give you this particular template because it actually produces pretty good results, even though it's not really how we should be using SDXL. SDXL, the theory behind it is that you use the two models in a very specific way, with the base model doing most of the work and then the refiner model doing a tiny amount of the work. This is an unusual setup which I found produced reasonably good results most of the time. Now, as you can see, the entire process is taking a long time, and that's because I've got my software for recording running in the background. And also, this is a very large image. If you're working with something like an 8 gigabyte graphics card with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, it's going to start struggling beyond that 1 megapixel range. So what happens in that situation is that you will get a bottleneck, and the bottleneck can actually occur with a case sampler. Most of the time, the bottleneck occurs with a VAE decoder, the variational auto encoder decoder, and that can produce long delays when your VRAM is exhausted. But if you have a very large image like this, like 2000 by 1000, you can actually get very slow case sample iterations. The steps are referred to as iterations, and these iterations can run very, very slowly if your VRAM is exhausted, which is what happened here. Now, if you have a very powerful graphics card, what I would like you to do is to I'll include this particular scheme, and maybe what you might want to do is just to use it for inspiration. We're not supposed to go beyond 1 megapixel, really. We're not supposed to. And this particular design goes beyond 1 megapixel. We're not really supposed to use the refiner model with the same sampler as the base model. And this particular scheme does that. So it's a rule-breaking scheme. It's one where I just want to share this with you to kind of get you to think in terms of, where can I break the rules? We know how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to do most of the work with the base model, and then with the base model here, and then we work with the refiner. I also like the fact with this, you can actually see they've labeled everything, the refiner, the base here, so it's a lot easier to follow. But as easy as it is to follow, it is breaking the rules. We're using the same sampler for the base. We're using the same sampler for the output. The design is something similar to Automatic 1111. Maybe not the best idea, but maybe a good idea. I don't know. There's a very low denoise level here, which is allowing us to retain much of the detail from the original image in the final image with the refiner. I actually like this, and when I came across this image when I was planning this lecture, I thought to myself, I'd forgotten about this. I'd forgotten about this somewhat unusual scheme and the way that it just seemed to work. And in many ways, it works a lot better than the scheme which we're supposed to use. So I do want you to have this, play around with it, see how it differs from the schemes we're supposed to use, and maybe play off it a little bit. I like the idea of getting ideas from other users and sometimes being a little bit surprised by the results. So this one is going to be available for you. I think I will have a similar prompt or the same prompt, and we'll see what we can get with a little bit more experimentation.